Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between two Ikoria sealed decks. They are both Jeskai decks, but over here we have a more blue-white centered deck and over there we have a more red-white centered deck. You can find the links to all the pack openings and deck builds in the description box below. We'll go ahead and begin by rolling some dice to see who goes first. Blue-white rolls 3. Red-white rolls 9. Red-white will opt to go first. Red-white draws a Gopher Blood, Fire Prophecy, Cub Warden, Skycat Sovereign, Mountain, Startling Development, and Frostveil Ambush. We can't really cast a whole lot here. However, because we have 3 1-cycling cost cards, we could possibly just get into the lands that we need to cast the other spells. And we could cast Fire Prophecy to slow down my opponent anyways. And so I think that this is a hand that is still somehow worth keeping in this particular format. Blue-white draws an island, a plains, an island, a wingspan mentor, imposing Vantasaur, mountain, and island. This is a little land heavy, and we can't even cast the imposing Vantasaur. But I think we're gonna still end up keeping this one because we can cycle away the imposing Vantasaur and hope to get something that's not a land. Red-white will begin by playing a mountain. We'll go ahead and tap that mountain and cycle away our Frostveil Ambush to draw a plains, and then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white draws a Skycat Sovereign. We will play a plains, and then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a Ferocious Tigerilla. We'll play the plains here, and then we will pass the turn, possibly cycling some more cards away if necessary, and holding up Fire Prophecy. Blue-white draws a Dreamtail Heron. We'll go ahead and play an island. We'll tap both of these and cast the Skycat Sovereign. This is a 1/1 elemental cat with flying, and it gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that with flying. For 2 white and blue, you can create a 1/1 white cat bird creature token with flying. And then blue-white will go to the end step. On blue-white's end step, red-white will tap the mountain and the plains and cast Fire Prophecy, targeting the Skycat Sovereign. This is an instant. It says it deals 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card. This will kill the Skycat Sovereign. Red-white will take the Skycat Sovereign and put it on the bottom of the library. And then we'll draw an island. And then blue-white's turn will end. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a Mythos of Vadrok. We'll go ahead and play the island here. And then we can't cast anything, and so we are going to hold up mana and probably cycle at the end of the turn. We will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps, draws, gets a Voracious Great Shark. We will play the mountain, and then we'll tap all 3 of these, and we'll cast the Wingspan Mentor. This is a 1/3 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on target non-human creature you control. We don't have one. But it's a 1/3 with 2 blue tap, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with flying, so that could eventually get the Dreamtail Heron up in the air. And then blue-white will go to end step. During the end step, red-white will tap a plains, and we'll cycle the Startling Development, drawing a Dreamtail Heron. And then we will tap an island. We'll cycle the Gopher Blood, drawing an island. And then red-white will pass priority, and blue-white's turn will end. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a mountain. We will play the mountain, and then we're going to tap everything, and we will cast the Cub Warden. This is a 3/5 cat with mutate 2 white and lifelink, and whenever this creature mutates, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps, draws, gets a 1 of mind. Blue-white will play an island. And then blue-white will tap 3 and cast 1 of mind. This is a sorcery. It costs 2 less to cast. If you control a human and a non-human creature, you can draw 2 cards. Blue-white will draw a Spontaneous Flight and a 1 of mind. And then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white will untap, draw a Drannith Healer. We'll play the island, and then I think we have a good option here, and so we will tap 4 mana We will mutate Dreamtail Heron onto the Cub Warden. This is a 3/4 elemental bird with mutate 3 and blue and flying. Whenever this creature mutates, draw a card. We're going to put this under the Cub Warden, and it'll mutate, drawing us a card and creating 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So we will draw an Evolving Wilds. We'll get 2 1/1 cat creatures, which we will use these to represent them. And then this is a 3/5 flying lifelink creature. And we will go ahead and attack because it doesn't have summoning sickness because it was already on the battlefield for 3 in the air with lifelink. Blue-white has no response. We'll take 3 and go to 17. Red-white will gain 3 life to go up to 23. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white will untap. We'll draw, getting a coordinated charge. We'll play another island. We have 5 mana. I think we have to cast the Dreamtail Heron, so that's what we'll do. They cast a Dreamtail Heron. You've seen this before. It's a 3/4 flyer. And then we will go ahead and attack with the Wingspan Mentor. 1 damage is not going to turn this race in blue-white's favor, so we'll take it and go down to 22. And then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white untaps. Draws a Pouncing Shore Shark. We will play the Evolving Wilds. This is a land. You can tap it, sacrifice it, and search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. We'll tap and sacrifice the Evolving Wilds to get a Plains out of the deck. And then we'll spend 4 mana to mutate the Pouncing Shore Shark. This is a 4/3 shark beast with mutate 3 and blue and flash. And whenever this creature mutates, you may return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. We'll be bouncing the Dreamtail Heron back to the opponent's hand. And then we'll put this under everything, making this a 3/5 lifelink. And then we will mutate all the other effects. So we'll get another 2 1/1 cat creature tokens. We'll draw a card. And we'll get an island. And then the Dreamtail Heron will bounce. The Dreamtail Heron goes back to blue and white's hand. And then red-white will attack with the Cub Warden again for 3 lifelink. Blue and white again has no blocks. We'll go down to 14. Red-white will gain 3 to go up to 25. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps. Draws, gets a Plains. We'll play the Plains. We need to get the defense up in the air again. And so we will recast the Dreamtail Heron. And then because we have a human and a non-human, we'll go ahead and tap the island and cast one of mine, this time for 1 mana, to draw 2 cards. We'll draw an island and a Capture Sphere, and then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white untaps, draws a Farfinder. Red-white will play the island, and then red-white will spend 4 mana. And we'll cast Mythos of Vadrock. This is sorcery, deals 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. If white and blue were spent to cast this spell, until your next turn those permanents can't attack or block and those activated abilities can't be activated. We'll put 4 damage onto the Dreamtail Heron and 1 damage onto the Wingspan Mentor. Because we used white and blue, both of those will not be able to attack or block until our next turn or activate their abilities. The Dreamtail Heron dies and the Wingspan Mentor is debilitated. Then red-white will attack with everything. Blue-white can't do anything but take 7 and go down to 7. Red-white will gain 7 and go up to 32. And then with their last 3 mana, they'll spend all of it and cast the Farfinder. This is a 1/1 Fox with Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Go ahead and grab a mountain, put it into our hand, and shuffle. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps. Wingspan Mentor can't do anything. We'll draw. We get an island. We'll play the island. We need to stop the beats here, so we're going to spend 4 mana and cast the Capture Sphere, targeting the Cub Warden. This is an aura. It has flash, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature does not untap during its controller's untap step. The Cub Warden is locked down, and with 3 remaining mana, we're not going to be able to do much, so we'll just hold on to our Wingspan Mentor and pass the turn. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a Ferocious Tigerilla. We'll go ahead and play our mountain. We will tap 4 mana and play 1 Ferocious Tigerilla. This is a 4/3 cat ape. It enters the battlefield with your choice of trample counter or menace counter on it. Go ahead and put a menace counter on it. And then we'll go ahead and cast the other Ferocious Tigerella. And we'll go ahead and put another menace counter on it. And then we'll go to combat. We'll attack with all of the lifelinking kitties and the Farfinder for 5. The Wingspan Mentor will block one of the lifelinking kitties and take 4 and go down to 3. Red-White loses a lifelinking kitty, will gain 3 life, and will go up to 35. And then Red-White will pass the turn. Blue-White untaps, draws, gets a Plains. We'll go ahead and play the Plains. And then we are on the defense here. And so Blue-White will pass the turn. Red-White untaps, draws, gets a Mountain. We will go to combat and we will attack with everything. Blue-White will spend 5 mana and flash in the Voracious Great Shark. This is a 5/4 shark with flash and it enters the battlefield. Counter target artifact or creature spell. There's no creature or artifact to counter. And then we are going to lose no matter what. We will double block one of the Ferocious Tigerillas, but we will still take 8 damage to go to -5, and Blue-White will lose. We'll do some sideboarding if there is any, and then we'll be right back for game 2. For game 2, Blue-White will have to go first. We'll draw 7 cards. Blue-White gets a Drannith Healer, Skycat Sovereign, Imposing Manosaur, Mountain, Frostveil Ambush, and Island. We can't cast any of the white spells, so this is a bit problematic. However, because we can cycle 3 of these cards, I think we're going to keep this hand anyways. Red-White draws a Savai Triome, Drannith Healer, Farfinder, Mountain, Startling Development, Evolving Wilds, and Ferocious Tigerilla. I think this is actually a decent mix of cards and lands, and so we will keep this. Blue-White will get started by playing an island, and then we will tap the island and cycle the Imposing Vantasaur. We will draw a Checkpoint Officer, and then Blue-White will pass the turn. Red-White will draw, we'll get an island. We will play the Savai Triome. This is a land that is a Mountain Plains Swamp. You can tap it for red, white, or black, and it enters the battlefield tapped. You can cycle it for 3. It'll enter the battlefield tapped, and then Red-White will pass the turn. Blue-White untaps, draws, gets a 1 of mine. We'll play a Mountain, and then we'll tap the Mountain, and we will cycle the Frostveil Ambush to draw a card. This is a Will of the All Hunter, and then we'll cycle the Drannith Healer to draw, and we get a Pacifism. We still can't cast any of the many white spells, but we can cast the 1 of mine next turn, so hopefully that'll get us out of our color screw, and then Blue-White will pass the turn. Red-White untaps, draws, gets an island. We'll play the island. We'll tap the Savai Triumph for white in the island, and we'll play the Drannith Healer. This is a 2/2 human cleric. Whenever you cycle another card, you gain 1 life, and has cycling for 1. And then Red-White will pass the turn. Blue-White untaps, draws, gets a Yorion Sky Nomad. We will play the Mountain, and then we will tap all 3 of these and cast the 1 of mine to draw 2 cards. We draw a Wingspan Mentor and a Coordinated Charge. We're still missing white mana, but we can cast the Wingspan Mentor at least, which is not great, but it is something. And then Blue-White will pass the turn. Red-White untaps, draws, gets a Drannith Stinger. We'll play the Mountain, and then we will go to combat. We'll attack with the Drannith Healer for 2. Blue-White takes 2 and goes to 18. I think we will stay aggressive here and tap the Mountain and the Island to cast the Drannith Stinger. This is a 2/2 human wizard, and whenever you cycle another card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Has cycling for 1. And then Red-White will pass the turn. Blue-White untaps, draws, gets a Capture Sphere, which is not going to get us out of this. We could cast the Wingspan Mentor to save us some damage, and I think that's what we'll do. We'll tap these 3, we'll cast the Wingspan Mentor. You've seen this before. There's nothing to put a flying counter on, so it'll just enter the battlefield as a 1/3, and then Blue-White will pass the turn. Red-White untaps, draws a Fire Prophecy. I think that this is a good chance to get in even more damage. We'll play the Island, we'll tap the Mountain and the Island. We'll cast Fire Prophecy targeting the Wingspan Mentor. We've seen what it does. And then we will take the Evolving Wild and we'll stick this on the bottom and draw a new card, which is a Snare Tactician. The Wingspan Mentor dies. Red-White will attack with the Drannith Stinger and the Drannith Healer for 4. Blue-white takes 4 and goes to 14. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps, draws a spontaneous flight, has a handful of things that they can't cast. So to look for an island, we will tap 2 mana and we will cycle the coordinated charge for 2. Drawing a divine arrow, that does not help us. And we will discard down to hand size. So we will take the spontaneous flight and put it in the graveyard, and blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a Polywog Symbiote. We will go to combat and we will attack with the Drannith Stinger and the Drannith Healer again for 4. Blue-white takes 4 and goes to 10. Red-white will then spend 3 mana and cast the Farfinder. We will search for a white land, put it into our hand, and we'll shuffle. We'll play the Plains. We probably should have tapped differently so that we could have cast the Polywog Symbiote this turn. But that's not where we are, so we will pass the turn back to blue-white. Blue-white untaps, draws, gets an island. We'll play the island. We can cast the Capture Sphere, but that's not the most useful thing right now. We're going to try to hope that we can get something onto the battlefield that's a little bit more useful. So we will tap the 2 mountains, and we will cycle the Will of the All-Hunter, drawing a island, which won't help us get there this turn, but at least maybe next turn we'll be able to play Yorion and put up a defense, and then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white untaps, draws, gets a mountain. We'll play the mountain. Red-white will go to combat and swing with everything for 5. Blue-white takes 5 and goes to 5. And then red-white will tap 4 mana and cast a Ferocious Tigerilla, putting a menace counter on it. And then we'll spend 2 more mana to cast the Polywog Symbiote. This is a 1/3 frog, and each creature you cast costs 1 less to cast if it has Mutate. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if it has Mutate, draw a card, then discard a card. And then red-white will pass the turn. Blue-white untaps and does not have a way out of this. We'll draw, we'll play the Plains. We have 5 mana, but I don't see a way to survive with just one of it being white. So we'll just play the best card that we can, which is Yorion Sky Nomad. This is a 4/5 legendary bird serpent with companion and flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile any number of non-land permanents you own and control. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the end of the next end step. We don't have any other non-land permanents, so we just have a 4/5 flyer. And then blue-white will pass the turn. Red-white senses blood in the water, will untap. Draw, getting a Ferocious Tigerilla, but I think that this is even better suited to tapping 3 mana and then casting a Snare Tactician. This is a 2/3 human soldier. Whenever you cycle a card, tap target creature an opponent controls. And then we will spend 1 mana to cycle the Startling Development. This will cause red-white to gain a life to go up to 21. Blue-white will lose a life to go down to 4. And then the Snare Tactician will tap Yorion. And then red-white will close the door by attacking with everybody. Blue-white takes a brutal 10 damages and perishes. This was not exactly a fair game in the sense that blue-white got color screwed pretty badly despite cycling a whole bunch of times in this primarily blue and white deck. And so it loses, unfortunately, due to stumbling and then stumbling even harder on the second game. The red-white deck proves that it has a lot of muster and trounces blue-white in back-to-back sets. The 1 mana cycle cards are very useful and probably should fit into whatever deck that you can play them in. Let me know what your thoughts were about these games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.